very first episode of Tor's Talks. I'm Torunn, but you guys can call me Tor. Just a little bit about me. I'm Scottish, I'm in my 30s, I'm autistic, I am a massive nerd, I'm a lover of all things science and music, and I absolutely love to write. I wanted to bring my love of science and writing and all of my fandoms together to give you guys this, my take on all of my fandoms, including and not limited to Doctor Who and all things related to them. Now I warn you now, this podcast is not for kids. There will be swearing and adult themes at times, and that's not something that I would encourage small people to be listening to. So now that you know what the podcast is about in general, what is this episode about? Well, since it's the first episode, I figured I would start where all the best stories do, I suppose, at the beginning. So today's episode is simply about how I came to Doctor Who, which was my very first fandom, how my fanaticism for Doctor Who grew, and my opinion on the show since it returned in 2005. Now, if you are new to the Doctor Who fandom, please be warned, there are some spoilers up ahead, although nothing that hasn't already been reported in the mainstream media, I don't believe. So, however, feel free to pick me up in the comments if I'm wrong. Anyway, with all that being said, probably best to get on with it. When I was introduced to this colossal fucking weirdo on the bizarre batshit crazy show that is Doctor Who back in 1988 with the aid of my dad, I had no idea just what kind of impact this guy would have on my life. This funny, adorable man who carried a question mark umbrella, fell over and played the spoons, and was super clever and saved people all over the universe. It was like something out of my dreams, but it was real. And it was right there on television in front of me, and I was captivated. I still remember my first memory of Doctor Who being an explosion, an Ace and the Doctor running, although that's pretty much all that I can remember from that time. I was only 4, after all. Many of you remember much stuff from being 4 years old. I do, however, remember being very upset when Doctor Who was cancelled and the dreaded drought came. I was gutted. I would forever be super into Doctor Who to an excruciatingly fucking nerdy degree, and it was always something I was desperate to see the return of, so when I heard about the movie, I was over the moon. I was ecstatic to see Doctor Who brought to the big screen, and the film, in my humblest of opinions, is actually really pretty good. But I have very few criticisms of Doctor Who in general, in all honesty. There are some wonderful examples of Rule 1 in the movie, and a lot of stuff that really doesn't make sense, but it's Doctor Who. This shit is fucking mental. Who are we to judge? I kept myself going, post-movie, with Doctor Who magazine and books from the library as often as I could, although being a kid, I didn't have much money and I was bullied relentlessly, so trips to the library were not as frequent as my thirst for Doctor Who info would have preferred. And when I got older, I had more important things to spend my own money on, and to my shame, to a certain extent, my time as well. I was not in any way, shape, or cool kid, but I had other more pressing obsessions at that time, as Doctor Who wasn't there for me week in and week out anymore. I was becoming a teenage girl at that point, and I had 2 passions. Music and science. Space, to be specific. When I lost Doctor Who, I filled the void with Star Trek and a renewed obsession with all things related to space and physics. Side note, don't get me started about my love for Commander Data or Stephen Hawking. Those could be entire podcasts on their own. Brent Spiner, I love you. I fell in love with the stars, the planets, and all the bits in between, and I had a desperate desire to understand the universe. Hawking, Tesla, and Einstein became my heroes, and in time, the Doctor quietly slipped into the background, although he never truly left. Then came 2005, and I started to see adverts on BBC for Doctor Who, and the old excitement fizzed up inside me again. It was like being a kid all over again. Of course, I had other things going on that year, so I didn't get to catch it straight from the off, as I'd just had a baby the year before, and I was pregnant for the majority of the first series with my second child. And 2 kids will put a kind of strain on you, especially when you're pretty much doing it all on your own. Regardless, I had no particular attachment to Christopher Eccleston, so when he left, I wasn't all that bothered. No offence, Chris. I just didn't see hellish much of your run till later, but it's fantastic. Although you're apparently the Queen's favourite, the fuck you need me for? However, I was very excited at the prospect of another Scottish Doctor, having found out in my youth that my first and favourite Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, was a Scot. And I was especially excited about David Tennant taking over the role, as I knew he was more than capable of taking on the task of both serious and comedy acting, which is definitely required if you're going to be the Doctor. As I watched the Christmas Invasion with the kids on the couch, arsehole husband elsewhere, I was transported back to childhood. The joy of watching this slightly silly man run about when David actually got up and did something post-regeneration, just saying. It made me so giddy and happy with excitement and nostalgia that I genuinely felt like I wasn't an essentially single mother beaten down by a none too pleasant semi-absentee husband and left alone for large periods of time with two screaming children to deal with, all while dealing with undiagnosed autism. I felt like a kid again. Over time, this show would give me that time and again. It saved my life. I mean, I wasn't so sure about Rose Tyler at that point, but I was reserving judgment because I do like Billie Piper. But as the season went on, I grew to dislike Rose. Actually quite a bit, and I know that's an unpopular opinion. But to me, she felt rather pushy and obsessive, and I guess I didn't really like seeing characteristics of myself emulated on screen. I think she reminds me too much of who I was about the Doctor at that time, because in place of a real romantic relationship, I had the Doctor. When Billy left, we got this fucking wonder that is The Runaway Bride with Catherine Tate. Now that is a standout episode for me as one of my absolute favourites in David Tennant's run, especially as I found it so palate cleansing after Rose. Donna was funny, and she wasn't all over him like a rash. She wasn't a size 10 either, so I felt more represented as I was a bit of a big girl back then. All round it was a good fun episode to watch, and I really enjoyed it and wanted more from Donna immediately, so I was kind of gutted when she said no to joining him at the time. However, of course, then there was Martha, and I fucking love Martha. Quick-witted, funny, obviously obsessed, but didn't let it get in the way of her being a good Doctor, Martha. Freema Agyeman gave a really moving performance as Martha Jones from her very first episode. Of course, it hadn't been her first episode, but it was her first as Martha, so we'll just shh, it's Doctor Who the fuck said it had to make sense. Stop, jeez! Smith and Jones is another fantastic New Who episode that I think would be a great jumping off point for anyone who wanted to get into the show but didn't necessarily know where to start. Although, of course, we always go back and watch 9. We never skip 9, it's a rule. Then, of course, we find out about Harold Saxon, or also known as the Master. Shout out to John Sim, by the way, that was a great portrayal, sir. I thought it was a wonderful way for them to bring back a quintessential Doctor Who villain into the modern era of the show. The Doctor's best enemy, in some opinions, my own included. The Master, by the way, is my favourite Time Lord without a shadow of a doubt, but if you know me or you watch my other channels or my Twitch, you know I have an unhealthy obsession with serial killer types, and his particular flavour of psychosis is very much up my alley. That, of course, all brings us to the sound of drums and the last of the Time Lords, or what could be known as the rise of the Time Lord Victorious, the moment when the Doctor truly believes he's become the last of his kind. Now, this isn't necessarily the most shining moment for the Doctor, honestly, and it's unfortunately also the last we see of Martha for a while, but after this, I got my wish, and we got more of Donna Noble in the following season. I was over the moon. Finally, someone who could truly match the Doctor on sass levels and get away with it without sounding like a teenager having a bitch fit. Excuse me a minute, need a drink of my tea. Now, it began with Partners in Crime, where we met the adipose, the cutest little balls of fat you will ever come across. Understandable, I think, when Donna waves them off at the end. I know I would have. Fires of Pompeii, however, that is my favourite episode. Probably only because I have a debilitating obsession with Italy, which I have had for years, and is yet another thing you will find out about me if you subscribe to my other channels or ever catch me on my Twitch. Seriously, you should do that. Italy, the country, the architecture, the language, the food, the people, all of it. Anyway, I digress. We're talking about Donna and Dr. Donna. She's funny and she's smart in ways that aren't always obvious, and she really was quite good at pulling the Doctor back from the brink and stopping him from making gigantic mistakes. The storyline marking her as the most important woman in the universe was wonderfully done, and we got to see her grow as a character and gain more self-belief, which I thought was, as someone who struggles with self-belief and, confidence issues, I thought was just an amazing reflection of reality. The Silence in the Library two-parter was brilliant. Meeting Riversong for the first time, which opened up all sorts of batshit crazy questions to be answered in the future. And of course, we can't talk about the Dr. Donna without mentioning the Planet of the Ood, where Donna sees sides of the Doctor she really wishes she hadn't. And of course, it wouldn't be Doctor Who if there wasn't some devastatingly horrible Dalek-related shit to endure. Stolen Earth and Journey's End. Now, this fucking amazing two-parter finally ties up all the Dr. Donna strings throughout the season, with 10-2 being created when Donna absorbs some of the Doctor's regeneration energy, and the Doctor's severed hand absorbs some of Donna's DNA. It's just such a shame that it had to end the way it did. I cried so hard. Poor Donna. Poor Doctor. Lucky bitch Rose. I hate her. The jealousy is real. Then, of course, we get more Christmas special fever that year with The Next Doctor, which was a nice wee headfuck of an episode. Thank you, BBC, for the years of therapy I'm going to need to endure from all of this. All of this, you'll hear about more about that in the podcast, but seriously, BBC, I think you owe me. It really reminded me that I was not ready for him to regenerate at all, which is going to become a bit of a theme. Watch out for that later. Then at Easter, because we just can't get enough of David Tennant in the UK, we had the one and only Easter special, Planet of the Dead. That was bizarre, albeit not necessarily in a bad way, and I absolutely loved Lee Evans in it. Seriously. And then, of course, we get the Waters of Mars and what I would term the fall of the Time Lord Victorious. This time, he was there to witness the fallout of what he knows is not a good idea. Fucking with time. If that wasn't a dramatic fall, I don't know what was, but in all honesty, I think it was necessary. He needed to be reminded he couldn't just do whatever he wanted. There are always consequences to fucking with time. You mess with Father Time, and he's gonna bite you in the ass. Then, of course, there was The End of Time and The 11th Hour, which is a brilliant two-parter. David's performance is beautiful, and Bernard Cribbins is an absolute fucking legend. Of course, it turns out I was right. I was most definitely not ready for David Tennant to regenerate. Side note, I cried so hard I don't want to go. It was ugly crying. Big fat fucking sobs with snot rivers running from my nose. It was not pretty. Anyway, moving swiftly on. At first, I wasn't really sure about Matt Smith, but he changed my mind. I'll go over all of this in more detail at another time. But suffice to say, he became my favourite New Who Doctor, more than likely. Of course, with Matt, we get Amelia Pond and Rory Williams. Total relationship goals. Don't care what anybody says. Seriously. And these seasons gave me some of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who to date. Like, Vincent and the Doctor. I cried so hard again, seriously. Every time I watch that episode, like floods. And then, speaking of floods, Vampires of Venice. More Italy. I was a happy Whovian. Amy's Choice, great episode. Hungry Earth, yet another great episode. The Lodger, the Pandora Co opened, and the Big Bang. All fantastic episodes. Series 6 was great as well, with The Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, A Good Man Goes to War, all fucking amazing content. But that series, in all honesty, is really kind of spoiled by a couple of episodes I don't actually like. I don't know what it is, but the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People two-parter didn't really sit well with me, and I genuinely can't explain it. I really loved the whole River Amy Rory thing, though. The River Amy Rory thing was was fantastic. I thought that was so well done, and such a fucking surprise. I really did not see that coming from, at all. Then, of course, River becomes the Doctor's wife, and I cried so hard, because River is essentially me, and loves him like I do. I know, I'm so dramatic. I'm not sure if you can tell, but he definitely is my favourite New Who Doctor. You see, he reminded me of why I fell in love with the Doctor and the show in the first place. Although Jodie is edging her way in there for a number of reasons, but I'll leave that until later. Asylum of the Daleks was a great episode. Hi, Clara-ish. And that season was amazing, but The Angels Take Manhattan broke my heart. Just watched it again last night, and honestly, so much crying. Worse than David's regeneration. While Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill really gave good performances in that episode, it's Matt Smith who made me cry. His performance in that episode is so heartbreaking and so touching. I can't even. I swear I don't think I'll ever be able to fucking watch that episode without crying, but it's the good kind of crying, so I suppose that's okay. Of course, next was another Christmas special, and this year it was Man-Eating Snowmen, The Great Intelligence, and Clara-ish. Again, sort of. Another tearjerker, but a good one nonetheless. And did I note a Song of Ice and Fire reference in there? Winter is coming. And then, of course, comes what both of those sort of Claras had been leading to, The Bells of St. John. Clara Oswald arrives and is absolutely brilliant in my not-so-humble opinion. Fuck the Clara haters. Through that, to The Night of the Doctor, Name of the Doctor, Hello Again 8, Welcome War Dr. John Hurt, you're a legend and shall forever be missed. Yes, I still cry over his death to this day, but I'm a Harry Potter fan too, which he was in before he was in Doctor Who, so make sure to leave a comment if you had your wand up for Mr. Ollivander. Those episodes and The Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special, are all fantastic episodes. Fantastic storyline, fantastic acting, just fantastic telly. Frankly, could have done with some 9 given how fantastic it was, but I didn't say it was perfect. Although, can anyone say Tom Baker? I mean, what? Talk about a shock. I do believe my initial reaction when I heard his voice was no fucking way, but don't quote me on that. Then, of course, comes The Time of the Doctor, and again, I was so not ready. More not ready, probably, than with David. And then Peter turned up, and I kind of think I forgot I was scared. It was like he was made for it. I had been excited because there would be yet another Scott Doctor, and this time it would be obvious. But also I was really scared because Matt had become my favourite by then, so how could you follow that? Deep breath, however, really shook away my fears. Attack eyebrows that want to seed from the rest of his face was probably the turning point. Oh my god, I laughed so hard. Capaldi did not disappoint, is what I'm saying. But unfortunately, he never managed to make the #1 spot, even though I legitimately love his entire run. Seriously, I don't think there's a single episode that he has done that I don't like. These seasons, they seem to specifically, at least the first one of Capaldi's, to have been pushing to dissect the Doctor and his personality and morality, his goodness, so to speak. And I really enjoyed that. Between Into the Dalek and Listen, Time Heist, Kill the Moon, where he was pushing boundaries with his companions, Flatline, showing what it was like for him to see somebody sort of be him. It was like to see him work from an outsider's perspective for a change, as opposed to like being in the middle of it. That was really chef's kiss. And Forest of the Night, I love the way he is with little Maeve. It's so typical Doctor that it's fantastic. And then, of course, they brought us Dark Water and Death in Heaven, which both broke me and gave me one of my favourite things. Missy! Oh my god, she's amazing. Genuinely brilliant. She is one of my favourite incarnations of the Master. The next season brought us The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. I think great episodes, although apparently some others disagree. But, opinions are like arseholes. We all have them. Most of them stink, and mostly no one wants to know about yours. We have episodes like Under the Lake and Before the Flood, The Girl Who Died and The Woman Who Lived, yet more moral dissection. And of course, the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Incursion, where we take a look at humanity and our role in the universe and our propensity for war. Heaven Sent and Hellbent really delve into the psyche of the Doctor and all that he's been through in his long, long life. And then comes The Husbands of River Song, the first and last time that Capaldi's Doctor meets River, and as such, it is a very painful episode. I would imagine for most Whovians to watch, I think. Then another Christmas special, The Return of Dr. Mysterio. That was good, I suppose. Honestly, I didn't think it was anything special, but I enjoyed it well enough. The new season began with the pilot, in which we met Bill and got to see the first taste of post-Clara Doctor. There is a reason I haven't mentioned Face the Raven. I'm still traumatised by it. Seriously, BBC. Therapy costs coming your way. The Easter eggs in the first episode with the Doctor and Bill made me squee with happiness. The picture of River and Susan and all the sonic screwdrivers, and there were so many Easter eggs. I can't even cover them in just this one part, but I'll talk about that at another time. The episode also set up the sort of teacher-pupil dynamic between the Doctor and Bill that sort of perpetuates throughout the rest of that season. Although, towards the end of it, it does kind of get a bit switched up. This season, though, it traumatised me more than any other season of Doctor Who for one reason and one reason alone. All of the false regeneration starts. Because every time one of them would happen, I would immediately begin to panic. I'm not ready. Please don't go. It genuinely was traumatising. Because once again, I was reminded I'm not ready for the Doctor to regenerate. Like, are you seeing that theme yet? It's a thing. And it's a real problem for me. I genuinely dread the regeneration every time. Then came Thin Ice, Oxygen, Extremis, the Pyramid at the End of the World. Like, the whole season is essentially the Doctor learning that he can rely on other people again. And towards the end of it, possibly even Missy. Have I mentioned how much I fucking love her? Michelle Gomez, you're an absolute fucking legend, by the way. Rock on, chica. Then, of course, we see World Enough in Time, and the Doctor Falls, the death of Bill, and the betrayal of Missy. And the Master, welcome back, Jong Sim, you utter ledge. And goodbye, Bill. You left far too soon, and I was none too fond of that fact. But that leads us to Twice Upon a Time, the Christmas special, and the fact that no, I most definitely was not ready for a regeneration, and I wasn't prepared, even though he'd been teasing his regeneration constantly throughout the whole season. Thank you for years of impending therapy, BBC, seriously. Luckily, that year, 2 days after my birthday, the BBC had announced Jodie Whittaker would be taking the job of the Doctor, so by the time the Christmas special came round and The Woman Who Fell to Earth premiered, I had sort of had time to get used to the idea of Jodie being the Doctor, and I'm not going to lie, I was kind of happy about finally being able to cosplay the Doctor without it having to be either a gender swap or a cross-dress version. Jodie, she genuinely blew all my fears away in that first episode, and by the end of it, I was fizzing with excitement to see the rest of the season. I was so excited for the next episode. Ghost Monument was brilliant. We saw the beginning of the character and relationship growth that we witnessed with Graham and Ryan throughout the rest of the next 2 seasons. I cried so much during the season as well. I cried watching Rosa. I cried watching Demons of the Punjab. I absolutely love it when Doctor Who goes back to its roots and educates people. And that was one of the reasons why Sidney Newman created the show in the first place, to teach us and to sort of hold a mirror up to society and show us, where we might be going wrong. We got that cynical look at the way we buy things in that season with Kablam. And also a look at the way the rich shit on those of us less well off than themselves in Arachnids in the UK. I'm autistic, and I was born this way, so bite me, Trump, you tangerine scream. I hate you and your tiny hands. I'm okay. Witchfinders. That was an interesting episode where we got to see the Doctor's authority questioned because she's a woman now. And then it takes you away, which took us to beautiful Norway and gave us even more to think about familial and romantic relationships and about the universe in general. Resolution, great episode. Kind of killed me a little bit because my routine states it must be a Christmas special and this one was a New Year special. And I died a little inside. But, what the fuck can I do about it other than grin and bear it? So I did. But it is a fantastic episode. I'm not I'm not going to sit here and say the episode sucks because it was aired on New Year's Day. It doesn't. It was fucking fantastic. What sucked was that it was aired on New Year's Day as opposed to on Christmas Day. And my Christmas Day was essentially fucking ruined, thank you, BBC. Then, of course, I'm sorry, I sound so bitchy. Then, of course, we got Spyfall Parts 1 and 2, and I almost died with happiness. Oh my god, the Master! He was back, and he was better than ever. Now, I don't care what anybody says, Sacha Dhawan is an amazing actor, and he plays the Master so fucking flawlessly that I could swear the man was born to it. Not only that, this season gave me some of my absolute heroes: Nikola Tesla, Mary Shelley, Ada Lovelace. Ada and Lovelace are my favourites among that very short list, but I have so many science and literature heroes, I'd be here all day talking about them if I was to start now, so perhaps I'll leave that to another time. Fugitive of the Judoon gave us a lot of questions about what we know about the Doctor and their history. And we had a good look at what could happen if we don't take care of the planet in Orphan 55. And you can bitch about it all you like, right-wing fuckwits. It's a realistic look at what could happen if we don't take care to slow down and or stop global warming and polluting our fucking planet. With the possible exception of the dregs, because I'm genuinely not sure anything would actually survive. Anyway, Ascension of the Cybermen was a really good episode, reminding us about, what the Cybermen can do. And the Timeless Children. was an absolute work of inspiration, which had been in the works in one way or another since the 1980s in Sylvester McCoy's run as the Doctor I fell in love with. And that, ladies and gents, brings us all the way back, full circle for me, from the Doctor I fell in love with to now, to the Doctor who completes his more than a Time Lord comments from the 80s. And have I mentioned the Master? Seriously, he was spectacular in The Timeless Children. I cannot stress that enough. So that's it. We've come to the end of this episode of Wibbly Wobbly Timey-wimey awesomeness. If you stuck around to the end, you're an absolute fucking white point star, and I appreciate you so much. Now it's time for our first question of the week. I want you guys to let me know who your favourite Doctors, Companions and Villains are in the comment section. And if you have any suggestions for topics within Doctor Who or indeed any fandom, sling them up in here too. Please do give me a thumbs up, subscribe and ring that ding-a-ling so you don't miss what I upload, and feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Twitch, my other YouTube channels where I play computer games like a noob. The links will be in the description box below if my dumbass remembers, and I will catch you all on the other side of the time vortex. Ladles and jelly spoons, I'm off.